Welcome to the informational webinar for the Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program offered through Focus on Energy. My name is Catherine Mitchell. I'm the RECIP Program Manager at Focus on Energy, and I will be guiding you through the presentation today. During the course of this webinar, I will walk you through what the Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program is, including its eligibility criteria for both customers and eligible renewable energy technologies, the incentive amounts we offer through the program, the application process and template, scoring criteria, timelines for the process, and any questions we received prior to the recording of this webinar, as well as some key questions we've received over the past few rounds of RECIP that would be informational for those who are applying through the process. The Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program is a competitive request for proposal process offered by Focus on Energy 1 to 2 times per calendar year to offer financial support to cost-effective, eligible renewable projects for Focus on Energy customers. In order to be eligible for RECIP incentive funding, applicants must be non-residential customers of participating Focus on Energy electric or natural gas utilities. To find out if your utility participates in Focus, you can visit the link below. Also, residential rate class customers are not eligible for Focus on Energy funding through RECIP. However, we do have a renewable rewards program that may be more appropriate for certain renewable energy technologies, and a link to this program will be provided later in the webinar. The following technologies are eligible for Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program funding: biogas, biomass, geothermal, wind, solar photovoltaics, and solar thermal systems are all eligible for Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program funding for eligible non-residential customers of Focus on Energy utilities. In order to be eligible for RECIP funding, the equipment being installed must be new and owned by the customer in question that is applying for the RECIP funding. Equipment retrofits or upgrades of existing renewable energy systems are accepted, but it must provide a significant increase in the generation capacity and/or output of the renewable energy system in order to be considered for funding. Documentation of this existing system should be provided in order to determine what the net savings are from the original system versus the expanded system to understand how much incentive the project would be eligible for during the expansion. Other requirements include no refurbished equipment, leased equipment, repairs or maintenance on an existing system, and no equipment must be purchased prior to confirming an award with Focus on Energy. Otherwise, the project would be considered moving forward without the Focus funding and be disqualified from consideration. Specific technical requirements for each of the RECIP eligible technologies can be found in our RFP and application, which can be found on the Focus on Energy website. System size may not exceed 125% of the annual kWh or therm consumption of a customer in a given year, except for biogas projects which are exempt from this requirement. The required payback of the system is a minimum of 1.5 years in order to be considered for RECIP funding. To determine the possible incentive for a proposed RECIP project, an applicant chooses a $1 per kWh and/or $1 per therm rate for the project, which is then multiplied by the total energy output expected by the system in order to determine their total incentive. They can choose up to 50 cents per kWh produced or offset and up to $1 per therm produced or offset. So for example, a system that would say have $1,000 of kWh output annually multiplied by the maximum rate of 50 cents would get an incentive of $500 from Focus on Energy. Focus on Energy incentives cannot exceed 50% of total project cost under the RECIP program, and total combined incentives that a customer can receive from Focus on Energy through RECIP and through any energy efficiency projects completed and paid out in the same calendar year is $400,000. In order to apply for the RECIP process, you must fill out the application template found in Section 5 of the RFP that's now posted to the Focus on Energy website. All completed applications must be submitted by October 13th at 5 p.m. Central Time 2017 in order to be considered for funding. One copy must be emailed to recip@focusonenergy.com in PDF form, and one electronic copy backed up on flash drive must arrive at the Focus on Energy offices in Madison, Wisconsin by the submission deadline in order to be considered for funding. The preferred electronic file type is PDF. We will now walk through each section of the RECIP application in turn to determine what information is necessary for each section in order to be considered for RECIP funding. The first section is 5.1, which is application information for the customer, their site, property type, the technology being applied for, a brief project summary, an authorized customer signature, and any contractor information. If the customer has chosen a contractor to work with on the project, this should be included here. Section 5.2 includes key project metrics for the proposed renewable energy system, including the expected net change in annual electricity and natural gas use from the proposed renewable technology, the dollar per kWh and dollar per therm rates proposed for the incentive up to the rates discussed earlier of 50 cents and $1, the total incentive amount requested calculated based on the net change in energy usage and the chosen rates, the total project cost of the system, which should be backed up further into the application, the project completion date, average monthly peak demand offset if any peak demand is being offset by the renewable energy system in question, the overall system size, whether or not the project is being done at a new construction site, and the annual energy consumption in 2016 for the customer as backed up by provided utility information later in the application. The penalty agreed to if applicant fails to meet project completion date will be discussed later in the application. Section 5.3 is where the applicant should describe their proposed renewable energy system in more detail. This includes a more extensive project overview, how the system's been designed and optimized for the customer and site in question, the renewable energy analysis and calculations of the proposed system output, including usage of the Public Service Commission's standard calculation recommendations for renewable energy systems, which should be found at the link below. The proposed incentive amount is where you'll discuss the rates that you chose and the proposed output that results in the amount of incentive available to your project. Effectively choosing a dollar per kWh and dollar per therm rate lower than the maximums of 50 cents and $1 can result in higher scoring on the program cost effectiveness category, which will be discussed further in this webinar. Additional sections in 5.3 include project budget and line items, project timeline and completion date for the proposed renewable energy system, focus on energy's impact on the project by providing incentives, utility history, and any system input tracking as appropriate. Projects with completion dates past December 1st, 2018 are not going to be considered for funding in this round of RECIP, and agreeing to a percentage reduction of incentive for not meeting your chosen completion date does include completing well ahead of schedule of your project completion date in addition to completing late. We've added a guarantee of 10 points in the Focus on Energy Impact on the Project category to tax-exempt entities not eligible for federal tax credits and benefits. In addition to the materials in Section 5.3, you must also provide the following supporting documents: copies of utility data to back up the energy output of the customer, system specifications for the renewable energy project in question, a vendor quote to confirm overall costs, warranty information for the system, and calculation backups for the energy production, including, if you are a PV Watts applicant, a PV Watts calculation printout for your proposed renewable energy system. Monthly consumption summaries are acceptable in place of copies of utility data for the customer, so long as it shows a full year's worth of consumption data for the customer and site in question. Moving on to the RECIP scoring criteria. Each RECIP application is reviewed and scored by a committee of Focus on Energy staff to determine which projects will receive incentive funding. There is a total possible 100 points available to each RECIP applicant, and the vast majority of those points come from overall project cost effectiveness. Focus on Energy calculates a customer and program cost effectiveness using the metrics below. The proposed annual MMBTU producer offset is the combination of the producer offset kWh and therms converted to MMBTUs divided by total project cost to determine customer cost effectiveness and incentive dollars for program cost effectiveness. Once these calculations are made, proposals are ranked by most cost effective and least cost effective and awarded points accordingly in these categories. The next set of points available in the scoring criteria for RECIP are focus on energy impact on the project, reasonability of savings estimate, and system optimization. As mentioned earlier, The Focus on Energy Impact on Project category guarantees 10 points to applicants who do not have the ability to take advantage of tax credits or benefits. We also consider their likelihood of moving forward with and without Focus on Energy funding in this category, which may include how much capital budget is available for the project, other funding opportunities available to the customer that might help them move forward on the project, and the percentage of total project cost that's being covered by the requested incentive that would make it more likely that they would move forward with the project or without the project if Focus provides incentive dollars. Reasonability of savings estimate looks at the clear, reasonable calculation of energy savings done for the renewable energy system in question, and optimization looks at how the system has been optimized for the customer and site in question, looking at things like how the utilization of the proposed system meets the customer's energy needs, how much of it aligns with their peak demand schedule and offsetting peak demand, and how the design has been optimized for the site in question, and if there are other methods of energy savings that are optimized by usage of the renewable energy system or in conjunction with it. The final 5 points in the RECIP scoring process are for project completion date. Projects with proposed completion dates beyond December 1st, 2018 will not be considered for incentive funding, but an applicant committing to have an incentive reduction made for not meeting their project completion date will be awarded up to 5 points for a corresponding 25% possible reduction for not meeting their project completion date, either closing too early or closing too late around that date during the completion process. So how much time do you have to apply for the Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program? The RFP is now available on the Focus on Energy website on our current RFP postings page and will be there until October 13th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Central Time. The deadline to submit questions for inclusion in our pre-bid webinar was August 9th, so a few of those questions have been included here, and the webinar has since been posted for viewing throughout the RECIP process. Questions will be answered at the RECIP email, recip@focusonenergy.com, throughout the process, so you still have an opportunity to submit questions, but they just won't be included in this webinar. Proposals are due on October 13th, and applicants will be notified of their award status via email by October 17th of 2017. You will then have, if you are awarded, until December 1st to respond back to Focus on Energy at whether or not you are accepting the funding that we've been offered to you for your proposed renewable energy system. If you have questions during the course of the RECIP process, you may submit them to recip@focusonenergy.com with the subject line RECIP Fall 2017. To ensure all information is made available to all interested parties during this RFP process, these questions will be posted to an FAQ document without identification of the asking party, which will be updated and posted to the Focus on Energy website during the process in order to ensure that all questions are answered and that anyone who may have a question similar to yours, it can be answered in the same document and made available to those who are applying for RECIP funding. The following are questions we received at the recip@focusonenergy.com account prior to the August 9th deadline for inclusion in our webinar. Multiple meters at a single site. An application that has multiple meters at a single customer site can be submitted on one or multiple applications depending on how the renewable energy producer offset is impacting the usage of energy on those sites or on that single site at different locations for multiple meters. So please reach out to Focus on Energy for additional guidance on this point if you're unsure if one or multiple applications would be more appropriate and scored better within the RECIP process. Expansions of existing renewable energy systems are eligible for incentive funding for eligible customers, but the incentives themselves would only be awarded for the expansion's additional energy savings from the difference between the original system and the expanded system rather than the entire expanded system itself. So the incentives themselves would only be calculated based on the additional energy savings coming from the expansion rather than the system as a whole. Available funding for this current round of RECIP is at least $1.3 million worth of incentives, based out of the $8.7 million that was available for renewable energy projects in both RECIP and Renewable Rewards between 2017 and 2018. The flash drive copy of your Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program completed application should be sent to the address below by the October 13th, 2017 5 p.m. deadline and must be received in our offices by that time in order to be considered for funding. If you have more questions about Renewable Rewards, our prescriptive offering for both commercial and residential customers through Focus on Energy, you may visit this link at our website. There's currently a wait list for non-residential projects, but this program is one of the other options we offer for customers of eligible Focus on Energy utilities for renewable energy projects. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our Renewable Energy Competitive Incentive Program webinar. If you have additional questions that were not addressed during the course of this webinar, you may email us at reciproreCIP@focusonenergy.com anytime between now and October 13th, 2017 at 5 p.m. in order to get your questions answered. You may also periodically visit our current RFP postings page on our website in order to review the FAQ document, which may have addressed additional questions that you have. In the meantime, start filling out your application and remember that you must submit the electronic copy to our offices in Madison, Wisconsin, along with your emailed PDF copy by October 13th, 2017 at 5 p.m. in order to be considered for funding. Thank you.